Ribbon in the Sky, it's a classic Stevie Wonder tune, but how do you solo on this tune? Well, in today's lesson, I'm going to teach you 4 different levels of soloing. We'll start at a beginner level, I'll teach you some really great skills and techniques, and I'll walk you all the way to an advanced level. So let's go ahead and dive in. All right, I briefly want to show you the chord progression for Ribbon in the Sky, and then I'll show you the 4 levels of soloing. So the first chord is really simple, it's F minor 7. Second chord, G minor 7. And then the third chord is really cool. It's a really beautiful chord, kind of an interesting chord. This is called a B flat over C. It's like a B flat major chord with a C in the bass. Okay, and I like to play it like this. All right, so these chords are going to repeat themselves. F minor, G minor, B flat over C. And then again, that's the second time. Third time, same thing. G minor, B flat over C. And then we have this cool little walk up. Okay, doesn't that sound nice? Chords are pretty simple. F minor 7, A flat major 7 over G. Really cool, beautiful sounding chord. A flat major, A diminished, and then this chord's pretty nice. It's called A flat over B flat. It's kind of like this, but I like to play it more simply just like this. And then I like to put a little D flat major 7 at the end, which looks like this. It's basically a D flat major 7 chord, except we're putting the C on the bottom. All right, this is level 1 for all of you beginner pianists, and by the end of this section, you'll be able to solo like this. Doesn't that sound great? And believe it or not, I'm only using 7 notes in the right hand, so I'm going to teach you these 7 notes, and then I'll show you some of the techniques that I'm using. So believe it or not, the scale is a simple E flat major scale. Okay, so it's just these 7 notes. So if you're more on the beginner side, make sure you can play your E flat major scale. Here's the scale coming up and down. Now in a minute, I'm going to show you some of the techniques that you can use with this scale, but first I want to show you a simple left hand accompaniment that you can use in your left hand when you're improvising in your right hand. So in the left hand, you can play F and E flat. These are called simple chord shells. G and F, and then C and E flat. Okay, so it's a really simple left hand. You don't have to think too much about it when you're soloing in the right hand. Okay, this just keeps repeating. Third time. And then the little walk up, I do it real simple like that. Just F, G, A flat, A, B flat, and then you'll play the D flat and the F. Now you can also just hold each of the chords. So keep your left hand simple. Now on the right hand, there's a lot of cool stuff you can do with your E flat major scale. The first thing that I recommend that you practice is simple 8th notes. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 4 and 1, 2, 3. And really be creative with this scale. Try coming up the scale, down the scale. Lots of cool things you can do. Once you're able to do that, then I recommend that you try some turns. And a turn sounds like this. Okay, basically you take a note from the scale and you turn off that note. Okay? And it's a really cool rhythm when you add it to your left hand. Okay. Another technique you can use is a little slide. Basically, you just grab a note and you slide up to the next note above it using the E flat major scale. One more technique you can try is 16th notes. 16th notes are really cool because they kind of drive the tune. All right, before I show you level 2, if you're enjoying this lesson, please hit the like button. And if you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe for more videos just like this. All right, level 2 is for all of you late beginner pianists. And for this approach, I'm actually going to use 2 scales over the tune. Check out what you're going to be able to play by the end of this section. Okay, I love this sound because it's a very bluesy sound, and you only need to know 2 scales for this approach. So the first scale is called the major blues scale. It's one of my favorite scales, and here are the notes. Okay, it's a 6-note scale starting on E flat. E flat, F, G flat, G, B flat, C, okay? And you can do a ton with this scale. This is actually one of Stevie Wonder's favorite scales to use when he's taken a little solo on one of his tunes. So it's a super versatile scale. Now you can mix this scale with your E flat minor blues scale. So your E flat minor blues scale has these 6 notes, okay? E flat, G flat, A, B flat, and D flat, okay? So you can mix these 2 scales in some really cool ways. If you start the tune, okay, I'm using the major blues scale, kind of a lot of 8th notes. There's my little turn, okay? But then I might go into my minor blues scale. Okay, when I go into minor blues scale, I'll use a lot of turns. Some slides, like up to the A. I'll do little turns like on the G flat. And then I do a little gospel connector. I do this all the time, A flat and C, and then I'll do a little slide up to the G, okay? So like... Okay, and then I came up with a major blues scale. Now, if you want to do a deep dive on these scales and learn even more soloing techniques, check out our course, Major Blues Scale, and our 10-lesson blues challenge. You'll learn tons of great soloing techniques with both of these scales, so I'll put a link to that below. All right, this is level 3. This is for all of you intermediate pianists who want to start introducing some really cool, interesting colors to your solo. Perhaps you want it to sound a little bit more kind of jazzy and crunchy, so by the end of this section, you'll be able to solo like this. Now, what makes this technique sound so cool is that you're using a jazz scale called the Bebop Dorian scale. It is a very important scale to know if you want to get this kind of cool jazzy sound in your playing. So the way this works is that if you take your first chord, like your F minor 7, you're going to start by using a scale called the F Dorian scale. Okay, it's kind of like the E flat major scale, but it starts on F. But to make it bebop, you're going to add 1 note. You're going to add the E natural to the scale. And so it gives it a really cool sound when you're on that F minor. That little E natural gives a little bit of color to your chords. What if you did this on your G minor 7 chord? Well, there's the G minor 7 chord. In the right hand, we'll play the G Dorian scale. It's basically like an F major scale starting on G, and then we're gonna add the F sharp, the major 7, to this scale, and it creates a really cool sound on the G minor 7 chord. Doesn't that sound awesome? And again, it's just a nice little color you can add to this chord. Now for the third chord, that B flat over C, we're gonna actually treat this more as a C minor 7 chord. You can do this as a substitute chord for this chord. So think of it like a C minor 7, and therefore we can use the C Bebop Dorian scale. So C Dorian is like a B flat major scale starting on C, and then we add the B natural to give it some color. Now the key with this approach is to mix your scales in an interesting way. So when you start on your F minor 7 chord, use your F Bebop Dorian scale. Okay, then on your G minor 7 chord, use G Bebop Dorian. And then here you gotta switch to your C Bebop Dorian. Right? And then we're back to our F. Okay, so this approach can be a little bit tricky to play because the chords move pretty quickly between your G and your C minor chord. So this is something that I might encourage you to practice, is just going between your G Bebop Dorian to your C Bebop Dorian. So it might sound something like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then back to your F. 1, 2, 3. By the way, if you want to master your bebop scales and learn how to use them in your solos, check out our course 251 Soloing with Bebop Scales. I'll put a link to that below. All right, this is level 4 for all of you advanced pianists. You want to play some really cool scales, you want to get some nice colors, really interesting patterns, you want it to sound crunchy, kind of jazzy. This is for you. So by the end of this section, you're going to be able to solo like this. Okay, so what I'm doing now is I'm using some really kind of interesting scales. On the first chord, F minor 7, we're going to use that bebop Dorian scale that I taught you earlier, but we're going to add one more note to this scale. We're going to add an F sharp to this scale. So now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 notes that we can use in this scale. It's a 9-note scale. And the reason I like to use this F sharp is it's kind of like a little chromatic passing note. Right? Doesn't that sound nice? And so I call this scale the F chromatic bebop Dorian scale. It's the bebop Dorian scale, except we're adding a chromatic note at the beginning of this scale. Okay? It's a great scale to use when you're improvising. Right? Then we get to our G minor 7 chord. Well, for this, I like to keep it a little more simple because on this F chromatic bebop Dorian scale, there's so many colors that when we get to the G minor 7 chord, I like to pull it back and simplify it. So for this scale, I use the G Aeolian scale. It's basically a B flat major scale starting on G. And so this gives you a nice sound. Right? And then the super cool scale that I used on the C chord is called the C dominant diminished scale. So before I teach you this scale, we have to kind of modify the C chord a little bit, and I'm going to turn the C minor 7 chord, and remember originally it was B flat over C, but I'm actually going to turn this into a C dominant 7 chord. This is kind of an alternate chord that you can use as a substitute to get you back to your F. Okay, so I'm making it a C7 chord, and then the notes that I'm using in the right hand are C, D flat, E, F sharp, G, A, and B flat. This is called the dominant diminished scale, and it's a half step, whole step scale starting from that C root. Okay, and it gives you some really cool colors to play on your C7 chord when you're going back to your F minor chord. Now the key with this approach is to mix your scales in an interesting way. So when you're starting on your F minor chord, use your F chromatic bebop Dorian scale, G Aeolian, and then here's your C dominant diminish, and then back to your F chromatic bebop scale, G Aeolian, C dominant diminish. Hey, thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed the lesson, please let me know in the comments. Also, be sure to check out pianowithjonny.com. We have over 1,000 step-by-step lessons for all playing levels where you'll learn your favorite songs, styles, and how to improvise at the piano. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.